right? So market auction theory is a fascinating concept that I've been obsessed with since much longer than I've been a stock trader. It's a concept that helps us understand how stock markets work. It's like a big never-ending auction where buyers and sellers come together to trade stocks, contracts, and the goal is to find the fair value of a stock, which is the price where most trading actively happens, right? Now, here I have a picture of a giant flea market, right, where people are constantly haggling over the price of items. But also imagine each person can randomly relist the things they buy. Imagine that. Imagine if, like right now, when you go to a flea market, you walk into a flea market and you can walk up to a table and you ask this person, how much do you want to sell from? And then you're going to have a little mini auction right there between the two of you. Pure, right? Pure. The flea market is my favorite auction. If you, I highly recommend, by the way, everybody, you are trading an auction every single day, naturally. If you have time, grab the kids, grab your spouse if you still got one, and 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 go to a real flea market, right? Go to a real auction, like an auto auction or like a storage auction or a cattle auction or a flea market, right? Sometimes you can go to some of the like fairgrounds and they'll have a flea market that has a real auction inside of it, and just go, sit back, watch, and observe. Right? What you'll notice is, that as you're walking around, you'll find all of these really interesting things going on. And imagine, as like in the flea market here, you walk up and there's going to be a mini market. Every single table is its own market, right? As you're looking through, right? Each one of these little tables individually, right, are all their own individual small little markets, right? So like imagine you walk over here. Hi, how are you doing? Can I buy this? Hi, can I buy this? Hi, can I buy this? Hi, can I buy this? Now, when you go to our stock market, guess what? It's the exact same thing, right? These tables get replaced with very expensive computer booths, right? These people sitting at the plastic chairs get replaced with very large, very like, boisterous folks that are buying and selling, right? And these people walking the floor get replaced by traders that are looking to move back and forth and buy between these varied specialists, right? It's the exact same thing. Now, why is our market so much more difficult to establish a value point in? Well, think about this. When in these markets, value is very easy. This person just walks right up to this person and says, "Hey, I want to buy this." The two of them back and forth, they find the value pure, right? This is the purest of all markets, direct haggling. It's so much fun. I don't know if any of you, I mean, there's a couple of countries I actually really want to visit that I think 9 out of 10 people don't want to go to because the countries really like to haggle, and I cannot wait to go visit them. Like, I love haggling. Going to an auction or market and trying to like get a, kind of trying to like go back and forth and do this little like value dance with somebody. It's fun, especially when you're not committed to getting the item. If I see something I really like, I have an idea in my head how much I'm willing to pay for it, and I'll just go for it. And whether it works or not, I'll have a little bit of fun, then I'll walk away. You know what I mean? So I'm not really like attached to the outcome. It's a lot of work, right? Especially when you're haggling. But I'm probably one of the few people that are excited to go get their haggle on. But, the market auction theory, as we start to bridge together, is the concepts that we use to take all of this and we actually want to apply it to our market. Now, why? This actually seems pretty simple. So why is our market so much, and maybe like someone can help me fill in the blank here. Why is our market so much more difficult than this? way more complex, way more participants, right? Way larger amounts of supply, right? With way larger amounts of demand. You're not selling trinkets. You're a Graham. You're selling billions of dollars worth of stocks and commodities, right? This is a gigantic version of this, right? It doesn't look like this, and I made this using AI because I was being silly. It looks like this, right? Except if there were 5 auctioneers all auctioning all at the same time to people who are all buying and all selling all at the same time, all over the world, for all kinds of people. It's one of the most complex things ever. So if it's so complex, how on earth are we supposed to wrap a bow on this? Like, just look at this. Look at all the stuff they're selling, to all the people they're selling it to. People are trying to buy this specialist over here. Are you buying from this guy or are you buying to this guy? Anybody ever see any of the material on how the specialists used to actually communicate with each other and the floor traders? Right? If they, I don't think I remember all of them, but single digits were at the chin, double digits I believe were at the forehead, right? Triple digits are at the arm, and quadruples were at the wrist. Right? So like if you wanted to order, if you were in the middle of the floor, you would actually hold up your tie and then you would look at the guy in the eyes, and then the guy would see you in the eyes, and he would lift up his tie, or gal. And so this is one of the reasons why gals often wore ties in the earlier exchange when they participated still. They'd hold up a tie, right? And then you would have visual confirmation that you two were working in order together from across the floor, right? So then they would have to look at each other and say, let's say you wanted like 184 shares, right? You would say, I want 100 and 180 because it's sideways for 8. It's up and down for 3, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just remembered it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Right? So if you wanted to actually, put in an order and you want to do like 184, you would do, 184, right, would be your order. So you'd hold your tie up and you would say buy and then 184, right? So 100, 84. So you got to imagine how easy it was for these guys to like confuse and do this, and yet we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. So how did we do it? How can we do it? What can we use in order to take all of this chaos and wrap a bow on it? There's only one thing that really isolates and exposes what's happening, and that is actually participation and volume, right? So it actually, we move through value consistently, no matter how small or how large the auction is. And that doesn't mean if that auction's a stock auction. I'm going to show you another auction type in a minute. It doesn't mean if it's an auction stock. It doesn't mean if it's an auction. It can actually be any type of market, right? It can be, I'm going to do a real estate analogy in a second. It could be the real estate market. It could be the bonds market. It could be, a regular flea market. So the main concept here, right, and this is what we want to look at, is we're going to be looking at this, and I want to really change the way you look at the price as it moves through the market. So many people are making trades, and you have no idea why the price is moving, but you're touching a mouse, and it scares me. Like, this stuff is really, really hard. You should understand, like, and please don't like assume this is easy, right? So if you're like, wow, I don't know if I really get this, watch the webinar a couple more times. It'll line up. I really recommend other like Markets and Profile by Dalton, Richard Ney, Humphrey Neal, Livermore, Wyckoff. These are lots of different authors to read to expand on these topics. Even Anna Cooling a little bit gets into some of these topics in her books. So the thing, no matter how big the market is we go through phases in that market, right? So everything that we do is an attempt to establish value, right? Value is where the largest number of transactions is going to occur, right? That's what we do, right? If we're moving up that giant order on the order book that you hit and then reverses, that established value, right? Before value, we have imbalance. Right, so every time the market opens, ding, 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 you have your MOO orders that hit, and they immediately, due to a low order book, throw the market instantly into imbalance. It's not excess, just imbalance. We actually don't have enough orders. We just have imbalance, and this is why trading the open is very complicated, because you more or less got to coin flip that bad boy and hit it. I mean, I don't know if I truly believe that there's a largely winning system just to take advantage of the opening. Although I bet I could put one together on Apple right now. Apple right now, whether it opens above the price or below the price right now, gaps back to that price 9 out of 10 times if it opens below it, 8 out of 10 times if it opens above it. It's one of the strongest gap fill stats I've ever seen in my life. And Apple's doing it on the regular every single day. So if you're looking to buy or sell Apple, let it get away from the price and go back towards the price at the open. You're probably going to make some money as long as you don't, you stay in it. So we're going to go into our imbalance phase right off of the beginning. Just tons of volume. And we're going to go into price discovery. Imbalance and price discovery are the same thing. Right, so what I'm going to try and do in this is I'm also going to try and bridge a couple topics together so that they all kind of line up. So imbalance and price discovery is the same thing. When you're in imbalance, you are looking for value and trying to find it. Once you find value, that big order, that large order will throw you into balance, right? That's what happens. You exhaust one of your participants. Right, and we're going to talk a little bit about long-term and short-term participants, but you're going to exhaust one of your participant classes, right? So if you're long, for instance, and you're buying, when you hit that big order, it's going to exhaust your buyer, so you're going to pull back, right? And you're going to go into balance. You will stay in balance until you build more excess, right? So you get large orders in one direction or the other, and then when the volume hits, you'll go back into imbalance and start running those orders. And this is what we do: rinse, wash, repeat. Sometimes we hit value and we go into balance, and then we go the other direction, right? But we're always moving cyclically through this: value, balance, excess, imbalance, value, balance, excess, imbalance. And that happens as we run all the way up the book from the smallest of time frames to the largest of time frames. So an example to this, just to kind of throw it in because most people understand real estate, think about value as being like we build a brand new neighborhood and we put a whole bunch of brand new houses in, right? People come in, they instantly get to buy houses at a really low discount, kind of like an IPO. Everyone's happy. We got a whole bunch of, houses, and all of the inventory is gone, right? Boom. We had 300 houses for sale. Those 300 houses are for sold. Now, any house that now is sitting on the market that is not occupied would be considered the float. So at this point, there is no float, right? So anybody who wants to buy a house now, they can't really buy a house because no one's willing to sell. They all just bought, and there's no other houses to buy. So this ticker if this was a ticker, it would die. It is at value, and it has gone into balance. Right? A balance is where we either have a bunch of orders in both directions or no orders in both directions, and this would be no orders, right? We're stuck. Now, over time, due to great school districts and the locations near completing of a bunch of other, things in near neighborhoods, the value of these houses have actually started to increase, which has encouraged some of these homeowners to start listing their houses, right? This is putting orders on the, they would call it the MLS, right? No, I got that backwards. No, maybe, I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a real estate person. They go out there and they put it out there, and they go ahead and they list it, and the house is out there for sale, and these are limit orders, right, that are put out to the market. Now, anytime someone wants to buy, they can buy, right, that limit order. But what's interesting about this, and you can even come in and pay more for it, it's kind of like a market order, you know what I mean? But as these houses people buy, this drives the price higher and actually sends it into imbalance, because there's so many people interested in buying these houses in this neighborhood. This skyrockets the price because there's not a lot of inventory. The raising price puts limit orders higher, right? Because people are only willing to see higher. If anyone was around in 2018, right, you saw an incredibly aggressive real estate market that basically happened in this exact same way. And this keeps happening until we went to found value, right? And once again, you hit an area where just we've gone so high and the price has gone up so much that people are no longer willing to buy those new sellers that are coming out. And this actually creates value and sends us back into balance, right? Now, the price doesn't go down because everyone who bought a house isn't willing to sell it. Like, it's a good value. They're happy with it. They do think it's going to go up in the long term. So there's no desire to sell. So no one can really buy any lower. So the price stagnates indefinitely and we go into balance, right? Now, something changes, okay? And this is going to show you kind of how a reversal basically sets up. And this also has happened in our real estate market kind of as of recent. Now, because of prices not going up anymore and a general lack of inventory, we now have people that have been holding for too long, right? Some people become buyers or sellers just because it was an investment, right? If it's not going up, it's not really worth holding anymore. It's time to rotate out of this sector. So what happens is people decide to start selling the houses, and in order to do that, they actually start lowering their prices, right? Instead of holding above and holding out at limits, they actually start saying, I'm willing to take lower, and they start cutting this, which this causes larger buyers to start lowballing them, right? The buyers will start coming in lower and putting large limit orders to the downside, which would be like coming in, okay, well, I know that you want to sell it for like 5,000 less, but I'm only willing to buy it for this, right? This causes excess to build to the downside now. The only buyers that you're willing to get, right, are lower, right? And we're going to go, and we have to go down if we want to get rid of these houses and offload our inventory. We are going to have to go down to those buyers, right? Exactly. We have to entice them. And this starts our sell. We go into imbalance as people rush to get out of their positions or their houses as quickly as possible to the few buyers that are there. That plummets the price, right? So, and that happens until once again, we just exhaust, in this instance, our sellers. Now that we have reached the lows that we reach, we have hit an area where people who are remaining in this neighborhood are all people who bought 10 years ago, right? They bought still much lower than the price we have currently sold to, and there's no longer enough profit distance in there to warrant them selling now. So they'll just stay. It's a good school district. They don't mind driving a little bit further every day to their new job. They'll just stay because it doesn't make sense to sell. And this will once again stagnate the price.
Hello, market alchemists, and thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure to watch the next episode. And before doing so, like and subscribe.